Crockett recently.
Jasmine Crockett. Remember when I said, is she a relation to the late, great Davy Crockett? I don't think so. Jasmine Crockett, let me tell you, before you even ask, she's a very low IQ person. I mean, if we ever had to pass an aptitude test, that's the one should take one, because she shouldn't even be in the crowd. So I have no idea what you're going to, but I don't think we should waste our time. This is a low IQ person.
Donald Trump has once again stirred controversy, this time by escalating his verbal attacks on Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. In a recent Oval Office exchange, when asked about Crockett, Trump cut off the reporter and quickly launched into a personal insult. He dismissed her as, quote, a very low IQ person, and added that he could hardly believe she was a member of Congress. It wasn't the first time Trump has spoken in this way about Crockett. In fact, he has repeatedly mocked her intelligence, even going as far as challenging her to an IQ test or cognitive exam. For Trump, such rhetoric is not unusual. He's made a career out of questioning the intelligence, loyalty, and credibility of his opponents. But the latest remarks have reignited debates about political civility, respect in leadership, and how personal attacks can overshadow serious policy conversations. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a rising Democrat from Texas, has not taken Trump's words lying down. She quickly fired back, describing his behavior as the same old bullying playbook that many Americans have seen before. She argued that this style of politics is less about governing and more about dominating headlines, stirring division, and intimidating critics into silence. Crockett, who has built a reputation as a sharp legal mind and a fiery defender of progressive values, has also highlighted what she sees as the racial and gender dynamics at play. As a young black woman in Congress, she has often spoken openly about the double standards women of color face in politics, and Trump's repeated attacks only add fuel to that conversation. In her response, she reminded her supporters that the work of Congress is not about IQ tests or cheap insults, but about representing communities, drafting laws, and fighting for the everyday struggles of working Americans. The broader context here is worth considering. Trump is a master of controlling the media cycle. By throwing out a sharp jab or a provocative insult, he guarantees that cameras will turn toward him and conversations will shift toward his chosen battlefield. Whether it was questioning the birthplace of President Obama years ago, mocking political rivals during debates, or labeling journalists as enemies of the people, Trump has always understood the power of ridicule and repetition. In this case, targeting Crockett may also be strategic. She has become a rising star in Democratic circles, unafraid to take the fight directly to Republicans on issues like voting rights, abortion access, and government accountability. By diminishing her credibility in the public eye, Trump may be trying to neutralize her growing influence before she solidifies her place as a national figure. But this approach carries risks. For one, personal attacks can alienate moderate voters who are exhausted by constant insults and are hungry for real solutions to issues like inflation, immigration, and healthcare. Critics argue that questioning someone's intelligence doesn't solve problems. It only deepens division. Others note the historical undertones. When women of color in politics are repeatedly called unintelligent or unqualified, it echoes decades of systemic bias, making the attacks feel heavier than just political banter. Supporters of Crockett argue that this is precisely why her voice is so important, because she represents communities that have long been underestimated, yet remain resilient in the face of dismissiveness and prejudice. The public reaction has been sharp on both sides. Trump's loyal base largely cheers him on, seeing these moments as proof that he refuses to play by so-called political correctness. They view his unfiltered words as honesty, even if it comes across as harsh or undiplomatic. On the other side, Crockett's supporters see Trump's behavior as a dangerous normalization of disrespect, a continuation of a leadership style that thrives on tearing down rather than building up. The divide between these interpretations is reflective of the larger polarization across America, where the same words can either be seen as strength or as bullying, depending on who is listening. Meanwhile, Crockett herself has doubled down on her message. In recent statements, she's accused Trump of following what she calls a dangerous playbook of authoritarian strongmen, comparing his tactics to those used by leaders in history who silenced critics and attacked opponents personally. Rather than debating them on ideas, she has promised that no amount of name-calling will stop her from doing her job in Congress. That defiance has resonated with many younger voters who see her as a refreshing voice of resilience in an environment where politics often feels dominated by older, louder figures. This clash between Trump and Crockett is not just about two personalities. It represents a deeper struggle over the tone and future of American politics. Will the loudest voices continue to dominate with insults and attacks, or will new leaders push back, insisting on shifting focus to policy and people rather than personal vendettas? As the headlines roll and soundbites circulate, it's clear that Crockett has been thrust into a spotlight she may not have sought, but is now determined to own. And Trump, ever the showman, appears content to keep the spotlight trained on himself, no matter the cost to civility. What happens next will be telling. If Crockett continues to grow her profile, the feud may give her a larger platform than she could have built on her own. Trump's words may have been designed to belittle, but in the age of social media and viral responses, they may have instead amplified a voice that refuses to be silenced. For listeners and voters alike, the question becomes, do we reward politics of insult and spectacle, or do we elevate those who, even in the face of ridicule, keep pushing forward? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. This latest escalation has once again reminded us that American politics is as much about personality and perception as it is about policy.
Who I can't even believe is a congressperson, between her and Ilhan Omar and the group. You know, I met the head of Somalia. Did you know that? And I suggested that maybe he'd like to take her back, and he said, "I don't want her." Okay, what else? Go ahead. You want? Let's hear what Crockett said. Go ahead.
She compared ICE raids to slave patrol. I want to ask you.
To slave?
To slave patrol. I want to ask you if you think that there should be consequences for members of Congress who make these types of comparisons or use this type of language.
Well, I think she's gone over the line, and I think a lot of the people. Look, the Democrats have become radical left lunatics. They have policies that nobody's going to buy. And, you know, I see what's going on in New York. We're going to have perhaps a communist mayor because it's split up. You know, if the people would get together and have one candidate, they'd have, I think, a pretty good chance. But it looks like maybe they're not going to do that. But we're going to end up with a communist mayor. It's not even believable, my beautiful New York. When I left New York to become president, it was a great place. But it was the beginning of bad things because we had de Blasio. Had just started as mayor, and I said, this guy's a real nut job. Went to Harvard to teach management. Can you believe it? He went to Harvard to teach city management along with the mayor of Chicago, who went to Harvard to teach. The two of them are teaching how to manage a city manage it into hell is what they do. But that was the beginning, and now we're going to go a step further. Now we're going with the communists. Can I be honest? I think it's the greatest thing to ever happen to the Republican Party. I really do. I think if a communist takes over New York City, I think that's a gift to the Republican Party. It's sad for New York, but it's a gift. And New York will recover because, you know, sometimes you need a shock like that to straighten you out. But it's politically...
Welcome to Trends Reality, your go-to channel for trending social political updates. Subscribe, like, and leave your thoughts in the comments.